Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Conversation for Change on the World Consciousness Alliance. Today, we bring a conversation with a well-known award-winning actress and Indian classical dancer, Lakshmi Gopalaswamy. Lakshmi is an award-winning actress and also an accomplished dancer, one of the prominent dancers of her generation. Lakshmi believes in the traditional repertoire of Bharatanatyam, being inspired by its rich musical content. She aspires and aims to bring out every subtle nuance of the music with the language of Bharatanatyam beautifully. And at the World Consciousness Alliance, we stand for humanity, the highest values and potential a human can live in refinement of kindness, compassion, and non-violence, respecting everybody, every being and everything beyond caste, creed, culture, race. And we talk more about our responsibilities rather than our rights, so that we can begin to make a change, create a movement, and leave this earth better for generations to come. Today, we really hope you enjoy this fascinating and thought-provoking conversation from the film industry, from dance, and how these industries can be used to shift us from this negative paradigm into a high awareness where we begin to live our highest potential of refinement. Welcome, Lakshmi Gopalaswamy. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation for change. I would like to give you the opportunity, as this is a new audience, to share a little bit more about yourself, about what you do and what your beliefs are, how your lifestyle has created all the success that you've achieved in your life.
Wow, it's a big question. Essentially, I am in the performing arts. I'm a classical dancer first. And of course, I have also explored cinema. I have also, before that, modeled for a lot of traditional products, etc. The main thing is that I have always looked at myself first as a citizen of the world, a woman, and in particular belonging to India, because I believe that when you know your roots well and you go deep, you can fly higher. This is my approach or my attitude towards everything that I've done. So if you ask me about a career and success, I didn't really plan all this. I didn't plan a career. I just went with the flow. I went with my passions. I went with what I believed in. I also believe that art is a very, very powerful tool in communicating, in unifying, communicating universal values. I stand for that.
And you are an accomplished actor, so that's one of your talents. I wanted to ask, what is acting for you? Because in some way, shape or form, we are all actors in our day-to-day life. We play various roles, whether that's a father, whether we're in work, how we are in different situations. We generally bring ourselves differently. But you are actually acting a character. What is that for you?
I must share this with you. I have realized that acting is a deeply spiritual experience for me, because there is no scope for the ego, no scope for bringing out yourself. At that time, you're immersed in the character. Sometimes you might not be completely convinced of what the character demands, but then you have to surrender to the director. You have to do what the character demands of you. Because earlier, I remember even my first film, even showing something like immense anger, I was very, very self-conscious and shy, because that's not me. But you have to overcome that when you're performing. So I always feel that it is kind of, every time you act, it is really negating your ego.
It's a really unique perspective. I've never heard anybody speak of acting in that way.
And this I'm telling you through experience. It's because I remember once in one scene I had to rave and rant, and I was like, in normal circumstances, I would not do that. I would not create such a ruckus and such drama, but that character, that scene demanded that. And in front of so many people, you cannot think of, oh, am I making a fool of myself? Or, what will people think? I feel so conscious. You can't do that. You have to just plunge into that character, plunge into whatever the director demands. You surrender to the director's vision. So that's what I felt. And of course, that has also helped my dance. Because, I think you work on becoming that much more natural and honest. You have to be really convincing. And I'm not saying that dancers are not. They are very, but somehow this helped me, this shedding your ego helped me, go through, cut off those barriers in communication.
Yeah. But I also know from my limited understanding of Bharatanatyam that this actually has quite a deep root in spirituality, in its source.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, if you look at our Natya Shastra, which is supposed to be written by the sage Bharata Muni, now what is interesting is you refer to him as sage, he was a Muni. So these are all very, very enlightened beings who have tread this planet. And every enlightened being from whatever I have been exposed to speak about the same thing. This all-encompassing love, this one truth, which could be manifested in different colors in different regions, but the truth is the same. So I think dance also stems from that. I'm trained in Bharatanatyam, but I don't look at it as dance. More importantly, I look at it as a very powerful, highly aesthetic form of communication. And when you say aesthetic, that means you have to have some sensitivity, you have to have beauty. You can't you cannot separate the two. You have to have a certain stylization, a certain rigor. So I think that says it all, isn't it? Yeah. That's what spirituality is about. Also, it's trying to make us very aesthetic human beings.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's a deep tradition inside the dance. And I know from my experience here, one of the key or core teachings, which in a lot of the Indian tradition systems is the same for the World Consciousness Alliance. That's ahimsa, or non-violence. So do you think the traditional dance has a place in the world to demonstrate that or express this philosophy, for want of a better word, for the people?
Oh, very interesting question. Let me start by this. When I go and watch a performance of a classical dancer, what is interesting is not just what they dance, also how they dance, and more importantly, what you take back. I might not remember the actions of every item. I might not remember exactly what they portrayed and whatever, but you take back a certain vibration. When you go back, if a performance lingers in your head, it means there is something very strong and beautiful from within that is coming out. And I feel if you don't have that quality of ahimsa, that beauty, that's not possible. But having said that, when you look at our literature itself, all of them speak of love, speak of non-violence, speak of the futility of anger, the futility of violence. If you look at, and what better way or what more powerful way than art to communicate these ideas or these strong values. For example, if you look at King Ashoka and how he converted after the war, after the great Kalinga war, and seeing so much blood and bodies around, he realizes he did this to conquer, to expand, but he just realized after having won the war, he realized the futility. Yeah. And this you can so powerfully express in art. Or if you look at our traditional Kannada Dasa poetry, the Bhakti movement, they are very simple songs, but so profound. For example, talking about the mind is like a monkey, you know. So don't be fooled by it flitting from one to the other. It says it wants this, it says it wants that, it's a, you know, and it says I want to have that. Don't be fooled by that, because this is just the mind. So these are very deep concepts that poets have always discussed, and for artists, for dancers, this is our material with which we communicate. Traditional dancing has always been about that, and has always been trying to elevate yourself, which means like whatever, trying to reach that consciousness that we, it's a very abstract thing for me right now, but you know, that's your aim. So I think art is a very powerful way of portraying, of communicating ahimsa.
If it's okay, I'd like to ask you a question onto one of your other professions, onto the screen. Mahanji remarked that now, if we look at what's happened now with the COVID situation, and look at film, and look at the idea of screen, what we used to have before was the big screen, which was the theatre houses, the large screen where people would go and you'd enjoy this experience. And then that went from the big screen to the small screen, so the theatre to the television. Now with COVID, it's quite a good insight actually. People have gone from, you know, the television screen being the big screen to the phone being the small screen, which I think is quite
really small screen. Yes,
which I think is quite a good insight. How do you see that, and do you think it's made a difference in the world?
Well, COVID has changed performing arts scenario drastically. Number one, it'll take a long time for audiences to come back to the theatre.
Yeah.
And number two, performances, because you have to innovate and you have to keep it going. You have to do your karma. You have to, and for artists who are only performing and there's no other, whose livelihood and whose everyday activity is about dancing and performing, you have to find new ways. So you have a lot of these Facebook live programs or Insta live series. But personally, you will have to change the technique now. You might have to do more close-ups, more abhinaya perhaps, because I personally am not so excited to watch a show on the mobile. But I think what is happening now is there is a lot of exchange of information. You know, artists are talking more and sharing their experiences. These kind of things are very invaluable. So there's a new, very valuable data bank being built at the moment.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. And if artists are sharing this through experiences, they have a powerful voice.
You're right. And you know, especially experienced artists, there's so much knowledge, wisdom, and their shared experience, which is invaluable when they share it with the youngsters. They are seasoned in how to approach art. Perhaps they see this futility of a rat race, you know. So I think these are very, very invaluable gems that are coming out now, that should come out.
Yeah. Something about the industry now I wanted to ask is, do you think at the moment that there's a lack of imagination or creativity within the film industry? And is it becoming stereotyped? Because now shorter films are getting a much more higher level of attraction, and people find them much more appealing than, say, the 1 to 2 hour films. And do you think an actor or actress is able to do justice to a performance in these short 2 to 5 minute videos? Or do they need a much larger set of time and scene to really give space for a full expression?
I definitely believe in a longer movie, which helps you soak in, slowly get into that world. And so that's why the OTT platforms, the web series and all that, there's exciting content coming out now. And I have realized as a viewer myself that for example, I don't know Spanish at all. I don't know a word of Spanish, but I have enjoyed 2-3 fantastic Spanish dramas. I don't understand Turkish, but I'm watching one of them, which is also talking about the biases people have against one another just by looking at what they wear, and because of religious differences. These are very, very exciting, very beautifully handled, powerful themes that are coming out. They've always been there, but I think this is so much more real. So I feel the OTT, the web series, the Fire Stick, on Amazon, Netflix, and all that. That is really powerful and exciting. But the mobile, I don't know. We're still in a very nascent stage. I don't know how to comment on that. But I know everybody's attention span has drastically reduced now. So I myself cannot watch more than a minute and a half. If there's something, I kind of just fast forward and say, okay, what are you trying to tell me now? What are you trying to get at? So it will be at the most, it'll be entertainment. It could be sensational, but I don't know whether it will actually impact your heart, or bring about a transformation in you. I am not sure yet.
You think you need to have more time and an immersed experience for this to really settle?
Yes, some more time, and maybe some more time to get to know how to master this new normal now, with an attention span of 2 minutes or 2.5 or maximum 4 minutes. So sometimes I have watched some very nice short films, which are 7 minutes and 8 minutes. But, art is something that has to be chewed on, that has to be swallowed, that has to take its time to digest. So I don't think these quick fixes will help art. At the most, it could be more entertainment.
That's good. Great. Thank you, Lakshmi. Another question I have relating back to the situation, relating to the COVID situation.
Yeah.
So now the world is really going into a psychological meltdown stemming from an economical crisis. And there's predictions that the years to come may get tougher and tougher. How do you think we can raise the awareness of people, a place or a state, where they'll be able to handle tough situations? And is there anything that the entertainment industry can contribute towards that?
This is a very difficult situation, something that we have never experienced in our lifetimes. It's something unique, though you've read about it in history. I think more than just as an artist, as a society, we need to be so much more compassionate, and art can, to an extent, bring about that awareness to be together, to stand together, to help just everybody. Try and do as much as you can around you. Just look around you and help. And I think leaders have to lead by example. Artists have to lead by example. It is a humanitarian crisis, really. And in that, if people don't have food or they're dying, then I cannot think of myself as an artist. I'm first a human being, and I need to look at that first, and then comes art. But of course, art can help in raising awareness, in bringing out that compassion in you if your art is powerful. In trying to bring about the better qualities of a human, the higher values in a human, higher emotions in a human being, I think art can help there. It could be beautiful music, it could be dance, it could be whatever, which will elevate your soul, if I may use these very tall words, but yes. Entertainment industry, especially film stars or film artists, have a lot more influence over the public, or simply because they're so much more watched. And I think so it's a huge responsibility on public personalities. I wouldn't say just film personalities, public personalities. So in this case, it is a situation that we have never faced earlier in our lifetime. I think you have to lead by example. That's the only way. I would think, personally, I might not flash a materialistic culture now. It's inappropriate when we don't have so many jobs, and we are all struggling. Tone down your public persona that way, I feel, maybe. You help people spread the awareness of helping. We're a community. It's not about me being an artist and you being something else, but all of us have to do our bit. Just look around you and help one person at least in need. Just locally. I think we will sort the issue. So here, it's not really about an artist. And of course, in my capacity as an artist, what can I do? Maybe perform, maybe raise funds through maybe a performance or some interaction, So I think we have to figure out, but it's scary. It is scary. And because even psychologically, it's a huge thing for everybody, Even me initially, I thought, I've been sitting at home since March, just sparingly going out. I was relieved that I didn't have to travel for some time. It was like holidays. I never understood the seriousness. And the problem, the funny part and the sad part is that when you're watching news day in and day out, you become so desensitized. Everything is numbers. Everything is like a movie scenario, sensational. In fact, I don't watch news that much now. I'm trying to find things far more meaningful to me. Of course, I have to know what's aware and see what I can do, or, you have to know what is happening to the world. So when you have an opportunity to talk, you do believe in and you talk what you believe in, that is unity, that is all of us are one. And that's what your beautiful platform, your organization is trying to do. So, and it all leads to that. Everybody's path, either through science or art or philosophy or whatever it is. If you look at history, if you look at tradition, and if you look forward, there are different routes to the same path. So we have to keep that ultimate truth and goal in mind.
Beautifully said, Lakshmi. Great answer. I like that. Whilst the situation has changed, we can look at the general tendencies of history. When we come to a crisis point within the world, people generally tend to become more selfish. Me and mine, protect what they have. So how can we keep people selfless so that what we were saying there, looking after communities, caring for each other, becomes a reality and people don't just take what's good for them? And is there any recipe, any concoction that the entertainment industry could put together for us?
I don't know how to answer this, Chris, because I myself I'm fighting that. I, being far more comfortable than many people who are living hand to mouth, I myself have that sense of insecurity, and I think it's something that everybody will go through and they have to fight their own battle. But I think it is a collective consciousness is what is very important now. So I think the only way we can get that is, as I said, lead by example, watch other people doing that, and having dialogues, having maybe changing some policies. That's at the administrative or the government level. But more than that, I think it's a cultural shift we have to make. I've always been very conscious of resources, conscious of, for example, little things like water, well, huge things actually, but water conservation, etc. But now this is a far more severe crisis that we're going to face. So I think I would just like to take each day as it comes. Do little things. It could be for your staff, not cutting salary, or even if they don't, or trying to help them financially if you can. Make sure they are comfortable. I think if we can each take some responsibility for at least the staff that works at home, I think together it's going to be far better. So I'm talking about little things we can do in our everyday life that will have a major impact.
I think what you said there is really key, right? What's practically possible for you day to day, do what's in front of you as well. And leading by example is always the best way, because nobody likes people who preach and then don't do what.
There is nobody who is, they might not be educated, but everybody is sharp in picking up what are the actions someone takes.
Yeah.
Everybody is very smart. Otherwise, maybe a lot of people would have won votes by just speaking well. But that in India, that doesn't happen. You can't get away by speaking well. And even an artist, I'm sure a lot of people might be watching what I'm saying and what I'm doing. So better to be honest, better to be sincere, and together let us find out what is a good way to solve this problem. Because even I don't know at the moment. This is all I can think of.
Continuing along these lines, a similar train as well, is that we've reached a point in humanity. We have come to where we are now, and that exists because there's a history. And generally, if I make a general statement, because there's much more to this, the world lacks compassion because of the trade factor, because of profits. We're more interested in increasing the bank balance than conserving what we have. So how can we bring back sensitivity and compassion into this world?
I need to think about that, because it is something that I also ponder about. Profits are not bad. Profits are very required. Wealth creation is very important.
Yeah.
So we need not be anti-wealth, but what do people do with that wealth? What is the culture that we are creating in our society? Yeah. I think these are the questions that we really need to ask. And there are a lot of philanthropists that you see who are doing fantastic work. So I feel these are the people who need to be, here even media can play a role, where you highlight a lot of good stuff, which will inspire people. We have to distribute wealth, but if there's no wealth creation, it's not going to work. And you talk about globally, I'm more worried now about these very, very shallow religious divides.
This is something which is increasing, right?
And which is making people far more intolerant, so much so that, for example, maybe I'm familiar with the Hindu way of living or Hindu faith. And if you quote Veda, it doesn't mean God, and it does not definitely mean your God is better than mine. No way. But just because you quote from the Veda, then I sense that now. Similarly, in another religion, I sense that, oh, you're a Hindu talking. So, but I am not that. I don't believe in that. So, people have lost that sense, that common sense. Yeah. People have lost that common sense where you can remove all this and only try to understand the matter behind anything, So I feel this is a dangerous path, not just path, how do I put it? This is a dangerous
division.
Stage that we are getting into in society.
And like you said before as well, even through the arts, it mentions this, but many paths leading to one.
Yes, and you take any great saint from any part of the world, they realize God through their localized version, if I may say that. Enlightened beings come all over, and so they follow whoever they can connect to, who they see around them. But all the enlightened beings, all the gods, so-called gods, talk about the same thing. They talk about us as one, love, compassion. That's it.
I think
it's like many languages. That's it. That's all it is.
I think that's a difference, right? When you have such beings that are talking the higher refinement, love, compassion, whereas maybe some are doing what they're doing through fear, and
because they don't understand. They never understand. They don't understand the source. They don't understand what that philosophy is about. They become dogmatic. For example, I'm a classical dancer, and I can share my understanding. I'm always, a lot of our songs are about Krishna or about goddesses or about Hindu gods. But for me, I don't know whether that God, there was a God with 4 hands, or had the sun and the moon as his ornaments. This is so far, it stretches our imagination. And number 2, this concept of a god and goddess is what we should take from, which is fascinating to me. For example, the concept which you find you will find a similar example in every culture. For example, the goddess of knowledge or the goddess of wealth. This concept of an ideal personification of knowledge or the ideal personification of good fortune. These are things that we have to imbibe, and this is what fascinates me. So what's there in a name? Here we call her Saraswati. Maybe in Greek culture they call her something else. I'm not very familiar. Maybe in Christianity there is some equivalent. I don't know. Or in Buddhism, everything. So it is these wonderful concepts of the perfect human being that fascinates me.
Rather than who's right or wrong, who said what, it's about a connection of what we have, what we can become.
Yes.
I think this is one of my final questions for you. So thank you very much for spending the time. I really enjoyed the conversation. And some great insights as well on what
is it?
The film, yeah, definitely from what the film industry can bring at this time. Just listening to you then, it made me think that it has such a role to play at this point in time. And I hope more people come forward like you and speak, like you said, honestly about situations, because that's what will connect with people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy to come. I think this is the brainchild of Mohanji, am I right?
Yeah, correct. Founded by Mohanji, yeah.
Who I have had a very long association with, who I have known for many years. I hope this becomes a very strong movement. And then I must say, there is a kind of spiritual awakening happening. I do sense that in the world. There is a sense of, all these calamities also teach you the futility of luxury. Maybe earlier it was okay, but now you see, now I have a cupboard full of saris. What am I going to do with them? Perhaps needed at that time, so I thought, to wear something every time because I'm in film or I'm an artist and I should look good. Yes, of course, I'm also aware that I'm also an instrument for aesthetics and maybe handloom and all that. But now, we have actually stripped ourselves down to essentials. You need food, you need a roof under your head, you need love, you need compassion, and you need to look at nature, you need to respect nature. So I think this is nature's way of getting us back to the roots, but we should not forget this foundation on which we build our lives.
Very true. And I think you might have almost answered the last question actually without me asking it, which is the World Consciousness Alliance. It's formed to bring kindness, compassion, and non-violence into the world. And what's your take on this?
Much needed, most welcome, and in whatever way I can help, I would love to be part of this because the world, the only hope for the world in future is these values: ahimsa, compassion. And I think, in a way, I must share this. It's all not all very bleak and negative. With awareness through the net, through television, for example, a lot more people are becoming vegetarians. Yes. A lot more people are becoming vegans. Now, this is also because of the awareness, because of information available to us, right? So I think with the right information with all the exposure given to people, you will slowly but surely, people will eventually take the right path, I feel.
Definitely. It seems as a change is happening through any time of difficulty. It forces, I feel, people to reassess, and then something new comes from that situation.
Yes, that's right.
It's like the pressure comes together so that something new can be born. So like you said, it's not all calamity and doom. It's actually pushing forward.
Not at all. And I think we have to, I think there is now, what is important is to create how to do that at an individual level. We have to transform if we have to create a society like that. But we have to create a society of trust where people need not be worried about whether they can find food or not, whether they can live or not. That should not be the case. You should have enough trust and faith in humanity everybody's responsible for this, everyone. Where you create that trust, that faith in humanity itself.
Great. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Mohanji, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. To share and to just see the other great people who have also been part of this. You're raising the vibration. Hello, this is Lakshmi Gopalaswamy with the World Consciousness Alliance. Reimagine a great new world.